Welcome everyone to Classy Tech Calibrations. In this video I'll be going over and reviewing the Sony X90K. The X90K is Sony's second best 4K LCD based panel in 2022. It is available in sizes of 55, 65, 75, and 85 inches. I'm reviewing the 65 inch model. So this model replaces the X90J of last year. However, its actual performance is closer to that of the X95J, so some of what was in the 95J seems to have trickled down to this line for 2022 with the X90K. There still are some differences, it's not exactly the same, and I will go over all of those. So starting off, what's very obvious to you here in these demo materials is the blooming or haloing of bright objects around dark objects. This TV at 65 inches has 60 dimming zones. It's not mini LED, it's just full array local dimming, which actually matches that of the X95J last year. However, the algorithm that Sony implements for the local dimming has changed this year, and they do light up zones neighboring to the zone that needs to be lit up for the object in that zone. Whereas last year, it was much better at only lighting up the one zone that needed to be lit up. So technically and visually in dark areas there is more noticeable blooming. However, the black levels and contrast on the X90K is better than the X95J. So in most scenes where in real content blooming is harder to see or less likely to be seen, then the X90K will have a contrast and black level advantage over the X95J. Here I am running a local dimming test so you can see the 60 zone count. So you have 6 going across the top and 10 going from top to bottom. You may have seen other reviewers miscount the zones, and I think that's because of the way that it does light up the neighboring zone, and it can be a little tricky to count, but watching this closely and doing this many times, you can see how there's 10 rows of zones and 6 columns. Now from this test you can also see how much less blooming there is by having the local dimming set to high. The default and recommended setting is medium because that allows the panel to get its brightest, but if you are bothered by it or if you use subtitles, setting it to high, you'll have less issues. Moving on, the X90K is, as other Sony TVs, Google TV. It is my preferred operating system of the ones that any of the brands have. To me, it's very simple, straightforward. You can customize it, move stuff around. However, like other Sony TVs currently, it also is a MediaTek chipset with only 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, one of which being the eARC port, and you also have to go deep into the settings to switch between VRR or Dolby Vision or just 4K 120Hz without VRR. The remote, you can just see there was backlit. That is if you buy it at Costco. This was the Costco variant of the X90K. That's really one of the only main differences, is just that you get the more premium remote with the backlight. If you buy it from anywhere else and it just says X90K, then you get the basic black remote. I also just demonstrated the voice search, how you can just say the name of a show and it will take you to the right app and start playing, and also how you can customize the input screen so you can add apps to your inputs directly. Alright, now getting back to the picture quality, something that this TV and pretty much all Sonys do very well is showing all detail. So if you have it in the custom picture preset, you'll see everything from black to white without clipping or crushing. There's no stars in a star field being eliminated, and because of the high contrast ratio, you can see the blooming around the menu there, but as soon as the menu's turned off, then the actual image that you get has nice deep blacks for an LCD, and it does go up to around 1100 nits or so in HDR, so plenty bright, and even full screen HDR brightness is quite high, well into the 500s, almost 600 nits. And when it comes to upscaling, sharpness, clarity, and detail, it's typical Sony. There is some undefeatable processing that you cannot turn off unless it's in graphics mode. However, most of the processing features people like with Sony, especially if you're watching subpar or sub-quality content like Cable Box or something along those lines. So It actually does a pretty good job if you just leave all the processing features. I would say just put them auto, because they do a good job of not overstepping or being used when they don't need to be used. I will cover this in more detail in a future settings video for the X90K. But you can see here how when switching between custom picture mode to graphics, how much different this pattern looks and how much sharper and without artifacts the graphics picture mode is, and that's because graphics picture mode will disable all of the processing when it's off. But again, most people aren't going to want to do that. So if you just leave it in custom, set things to auto, there's really not a lot of negatives in doing so. Alright, as for DSE, dirty screen effect, it's actually quite clean. There's some vignetting in the corners, but that's pretty much all LCD panels. And that's really all there is to say about it. It actually is quite clean. And so this TV is also priced reasonably well. Currently it's about $1,200 for the 65-inch model. So it's really in a prime position price-wise. Motion, great, no problems. Here you can see in dark, shadowy areas that do have bright lights how you will get some blooming into the black bars, but that's with the camera very overexposed. Yes, you can see it in person. Again, if you put the local dimming to high, it will help that, but it's really not that much of an issue even on medium. And again, you do get a little bit more brightness on medium, and high might crush some detail a little bit. Here showing in game mode how the local dimming has been updated in game mode with VRR, and it all works now. So you can play your games with local dimming on either medium or high or however you like, which puts this in an area where it's better than Samsung alternatives, because while Samsung does allow the local dimming in game mode, it does greatly reduce its effectiveness compared to its movie mode. Also, the X90K, especially compared to last year and previous Sonys, the color gamut is actually quite good and competitive with other 2022 models, whereas last year the color gamut was a bit low. Well, now that's corrected. You're getting around 75% or so of BT 2020 coverage, and it does that in game mode. It does not reduce the color gamut in game mode like Samsung TVs do. In SDR, here with Fortnite, this is SDR, very bright, and then as we go into 120 Hz HDR, you can see there's a little bit of posterization, but not a lot, and as soon as you put it on smooth gradation to low, it's pretty much all gone, a non-issue. Sony's the only brand that you can do that with. So overall, I would say that this is really a great gaming TV, especially for the price. Now, if you're trying to compare it to a last year OLED for the same price, I'm going to tell you try to go for the OLED as long as you're not against OLED for whichever reasons. However, as those models disappear from stock and the 2022 OLED models are more expensive, and if this is in your price range, you got to consider other options. So the LG QNED 85 is a little bit more expensive and slightly better. If that drops down to about the same price as this, then I would maybe suggest that, but if it stays where there's a few $100 difference between them, then, this is a perfectly viable option. Now, one of the major issues with the X90 line has always been viewing angles are not good. So last year's X95J had the extra wide viewing angle filter applied to the TV, so it was much better off angle if you're cross-shopping with that, if it's still available. And again, the X95J had a better local dimming algorithm, but the X90K has better contrast and more color gamut. So they're kind of tied for different reasons. Then if you look to Samsung, you're going to be in one of the mid-tier options, such as like the Q80B or so, price-wise, and I would definitely go for this over that. And then from Hisense, TCL, those brands, they are going to have a bit more brightness, but they're going to make sacrifices to have that brightness at this price point, with those sacrifices usually being accuracy, being able to show full detail, and processing problems. So overall, I do recommend the Sony X90K, especially considering its price range depending on how prices change over the course of the year, it is in a good middle ground area kind of to itself. So that's going to be it. I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope it helped you out, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks.